bad.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Ricardo Vance, also known as Ricky Vance, and today we have a great show for you. Independent investigative journalist Maryam Henein. She's also the director of award-winning documentary Vanishing of the Bees, narrated by Ellen Page, which is a famous Canadian actress you might know from her leading role in the movie Juno. Of course, we talk about all the current events, everything that's going on in the world. I apologize if you guys are having fatigue of this topic, but it's a topic that's affecting everybody everywhere, and that's one of the reasons why I've been so passionate about kind of talking about this, and I apologize for anybody who has been dealing with my longer than normal rants and me getting worked up. But it is one of those things where it's affecting all my loved ones, my friends, all their loved ones and friends. It's affecting everybody. So it's hard not to get worked up. I mean, that passion of mine for these topics and these discussions is a gift and sometimes a curse, because I do get worked up sometimes and I do feel bad about it. But I'm also very passionate about these topics, and that's why I do this. So thank you, everybody who's been, and any of the new listeners, definitely thank you for listening, because I think since I've been exclusively talking about this topic, it's my rants and me getting worked up has been happening more often. So enough about that. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these discussions and appreciate the fact that we're still talking about this, because it is a moving target. Things are changing daily. Every press conference is new information. Every day is a new article and new information. So it's hard not to talk about this. And there's so many agendas and layers and people who are gaining from this, people who are deceiving for their agendas, and all the inconsistencies with the numbers and tests and what the governments are telling you, what the media is telling you. So it's hard not to get worked up and not talk about this. And this show was recorded on April 9th, and I'm trying to get these shows out as quickly as possible to keep them relevant. But I've been doing so many lately that they're a couple days behind. But today's Monday the 13th. Hopefully whatever we talked about on the show is still true and not too much has changed. But I'll definitely try to get these shows out as quickly as possible if we're talking about a topic like this, which is very relevant and is changing from day to day. So thanks everybody who's been helping the show financially. From the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate it. I know the future is uncertain. I know money's tight for all of us. So anybody who has found a way to help out financially, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Of course, there's been a lot of suppression of these discussions. Obviously, the London Real show with David Icke has been suppressed and banned from YouTube, and there's more of that happening left and right. I mean, there's people who just constantly are just asking questions and are being suppressed. So if you can spread these shows, spread them on your social media, rate the show, review the show, all that truly helps with just helping expose people to this podcast and this specific conversation and all the conversations I have. So thank you so much. Also, the music you hear on the podcast is my solo project, Theory 6. You can get that song that you hear in the beginning of the show, which is called The Ripple Effect. You can get that anywhere you can get digital downloads. And if you like the song, all that money goes to supporting the show. My Patreon page, obviously, it's another way of financially supporting the show. And if you do help me on Patreon, then I will let you know when I book guests and who I have coming up and all that stuff, because usually people don't know until the show's released who's going to be on. So a little perk with kind of just knowing what's going on behind the scenes and discussions I'm having with guests prior to having them on. So hopefully everybody's staying safe and sane. Hopefully you guys are bearing with me in regards to, like I said, I'm just passionate about these topics. I'm passionate about talking about this and trying to get these discussions out there and trying to honestly look at things from every perspective. And I think a lot of us who are researching this and talking about what's going on in the world, COVID-19, the coronavirus, the vaccine agenda, the media deceiving, all this stuff, I think we're all still trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So you guys are on that journey with me, but without a doubt, we're being deceived and lied to about some stuff, and we just got to figure out why. So thanks, guys, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.
So you go by Ricardo or Ricky?
Yeah, my full name's Ricardo, and I'm Portuguese. So when I came to America, I was just trying to fit in, so I wanted to sound American. So I told everybody my name was Ricky. And now looking back, everybody's like, "I like the name Ricardo." I'm like, "Yeah, I do too." But now everybody refers to me as Ricky. So it was
I
just
can call you Ricardo because we just met.
yeah, yeah. I could start fresh with you. Yeah. Well, speaking of Ricardos, you're in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. You live there?
No, I'm a coronavirus refugee.
Are you really? Is that a true story?
Dude, I sensed it and got out. I've been in the future. I've been covering this from the beginning. I did a piece called with Zach Voorhees, the Google whistleblower, and I titled it, "Is This the Virus That Didn't Cry Wolf?" So whether, I think it's a pandemic, it's planned, but it's still the virus that didn't cry wolf because it took people by surprise. So I was going to actually come earlier, and I've been getting the feeling to get out of just for me, the message to leave America. So I had like a buggy bag, and I had already lost my place because of mold, and I was staying with my boyfriend and planning to come to Costa Rica, and just like left before everything was shut down. And then we arrived the day after COVID-19 arrived in Costa Rica. So I've been covering like what's happening here as well.
So how is it there? Is it similar
Are we recording?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, great.
Yeah, sorry. I usually tell them before I call them that I start. You know what it is? I try to get these. I keep these conversations casual, and I would always find myself like having like these really fun, like interesting conversations before I record, and I'm like, oh, why didn't I record that?
Yeah.
So
get go.
Yeah, it's my fault. I didn't tell you, but
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's great. So how is it here? Okay, so I think the way that it's unfolding here demonstrates to me that this is really like a pandemic, and or I believe now where I am today that it's actually a live exercise. Just like there's this clip in one of the episodes, COVID-19 Task Force, as the world churns, as I call it, one of the episodes where Pompeo and Trump, basically Trump says, like, why didn't you tell me this was a live exercise? And Bill Gates refers to Dark Winter was an operations that he says himself went awry. I'm laughing because the clip, you could see like he's not happy with the way it rolled out. So if given, come on, by now our people have they caught up with those of us who've been covering it from the get-go to like something's a little fishy here. And if we can band together and create like the 12th monkey effect, and just call this live exercise off, there's a lot of narratives going. And I think as a journalist, specifically, like when I get into something, I obsess about it and want to get all the different angles, and then connect the dots. So here in Costa Rica, there was one case, there's been 2 deaths. Based on 2 deaths, they called the state of emergency. Just like in California, there's AB 262, based on 3 deaths of an outbreak, you can call a state of emergency. And I'm like really remote in the jungle. There is a curfew. The cars can only go depending on what your plate ends in. So alternating days during the Holy Week of Easter, the rebirth of Jesus. And they closed down the markets. I was staying in one place where they got a little OCD, and it's interesting because we've been in the future. Like for instance, when we were in San Francisco with our roommate, we were in like the full-on fear porn. Like this is real. Bought hazmat suits. I already had a mask. Got alcohol. Like way ahead of most people, and then. By the next week, we had gone through the fear porn phase where we're like, this is a psyop. And our roommate was the one now starting to be like, oh shit, I'm freaking out. So that's been really interesting to go on this roller coaster ride. And I think arguably as a journalist in the health and wellness field, it's the biggest story that I've covered, and it's also interesting and amazing to see how we are really the news, and thank goodness for social media, but at the same time we're having to face so much censorship. So I'm very grateful to have a voice because I have a lot of things to say in these censored times. So does that answer? So with Costa Rica now there's 3 deaths, and I believe 2 of them were foreigners. There's 430, I think, suspected cases, but that doesn't mean anything to me. And I think people who realize that the devil is in the details, and I'm very detail oriented, that they're misclassifying that the PCR test itself is faulty and it's not diagnostic. It's not FDA approved, not that that matters, but it's under emergency use authorization, which basically means anything goes. Corners can be cut. It's a race for a vaccine. Vaccines, like now they're just skipping animals altogether. There's already no double placebo trials, and now, so some people will say, well, this can't be a pandemic because they would have already had the vaccine. But there are places, like how many companies are, at least, more than 6, I want to say 12 companies that are racing. Bill Gates has his fingers in a lot of them. And Israel, I think, is ahead, well, in another country, Johnson & Johnson. But these have been attempted before, these coronavirus vaccines, and they've always proven to be very dangerous. And I'm not against vaccine theory, but if you really actually do the research, they cause injury. So I know I just said a lot.
Yeah, no, it's because usually I'm the one, going with long rants. But when you're passionate about these things, it's hard not to get caught up in what you're saying and get so many things out. And like you said, there's so much censorship. I'm all for having open discussion about vaccines. I'm very outspoken about my kids aren't vaccinated. I've had Del Bigtree on. I've had in the past, and I was supposed to have the CT Freedom Alliance, which they're fighting against the Connecticut government in regards to they basically are trying to mandate vaccines for anybody who's going to school and no exceptions to the rule, and they're kind of fighting against that. And I was supposed to have them on, and then the coronavirus thing kind of took the headlines, and now a lot of guests who aren't really talking about anything related to this kind of feels like maybe wait. But it kind of, to me, it kind of is related, because you're starting to see the vaccine agenda being pushed.
It's so related. Hello, this is the linchpin. This is the final hurrah to bring in these digital certificates and bamboozle people. This vaccine is the most, I think, divisive topic of our era. It's like literally booting people out of the town square, and we're now inviting Snitch Nation, and in some places cities are rewarding snitching. I think California, rewarding snitching. This is the type of devolvement that we've seen our amazing human species, and I think that big pharma having been, this is what I've been doing for 12 years, since making Vanishing of the Bees, looking at corruption and studying medicine, a functional medicine perspective and biohacking, that I lost my train of thought. That it happens. I can get it back, but yeah.
Yeah, no, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think what you're seeing a lot. I mean, the
Oh, I
vaccine.
remembered.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry.
no, continue. Yeah.
They've paved the way. 1 in every 2 people has a chronic illness. How perfect that this virus will manifest itself differently, and it's really a cocktail. And you're really dealing with metabolic syndrome, with mitochondrial dysfunction, where you have a lack of oxygen in some cases. And people also forget that respiratory issues are a leading cause of mortality. And so if you have 1 in every 2 people that has a chronic illness, 54% of our children, this is not normal. None of this is normal. We've normalized pathology, and this lockdown, this voluntary house arrest, this is also normalization of pathology in the overtone window, where it's like 15 and then 30, and you are lucky and blessed enough to have an online existence, you're making the transition a lot easier. But depending on the classes, it's yeah, there's so much to say.
Yeah, I know. So I find myself doing the same thing where it's just like, where do I start? Because they're just so many. I mean, there's just so many tentacles of this octopus, and it's so many layers to it. And John, you're absolutely right. I mean, I said on my last podcast, which I had this guy Ed Clay from the Chimsa Hospital in Mexico. They do it used to be actually the Gerson Hospital, and then they
Oh,
bought
okay.
and
Yeah.
and they do a lot of alternative stuff. But we're talking about how, like, I've said this a few times. It's like that boiling frog metaphor. You put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. But if you slowly start warming up the water, next thing you know, it's in boiling water, and it never noticed. And it's the same thing with, like, we didn't create martial law overnight. What we're doing is little by little telling you
Yeah.
only 100 people should get together, then only 50 people, then only
Yeah.
25, then nobody should get together. And if you do, you should be 6 feet away from one another. And it's like, so little by little, we're giving away our rights and any freedoms that, like, next thing you know, you look around, you're like, holy shit, like, I've given up everything. And you didn't realize it because it was small little baby steps.
Yeah, and that's where, this is spiritual warfare. This is where people are invited now to go within if people have time on their hands. I mean, I feel like I'm busier than ever because I'm wanting to cover this play by play, but to really take this moment to develop some self-awareness. Like, okay, you were 45 and you had to wait all this time to learn how to wash your hands. Now it's time to realize that you're a spirit, and hopefully you're not a narcissist or sociopath. You have some connection to your heart, and you can realize that you are being used as a pawn in a game of divide and conquer. And wake up, just like in Westworld, and realize that sovereignty is worth fighting for. It's just so much like Westworld. I mean, in the depths that you can go in arguing, who are these elitists? Are they even hybrids? Like, if they're eating blood, it can go crazy into the rabbit hole. And so I understand there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, but on the basic level, I think that humans may feel something is amiss. And I will say that if you look at the Man on the Street that we did on the Walk of Fame, there are some key moments where basically the takeaway is this is no big deal and it's made up. They made it. That was before. And so really the virus is also one of fear, and that is so contagious to even see it in Costa Rica. But the point is, like, let us awake. And if this event is not waking you up, then I don't know what is. Like, if I can't believe that hashtag believe Fauci was circulating. Just look at this man's history. He's vaccine deep state, as is Birx, as is Azar, they have a long legacy. I mean, there's a story about Birx where, on all her work with HIV, that I think she had to receive blood, and she was like, I don't want the blood, I don't want the blood. And it was later found to be tainted with HIV. And arguably she knew it. And yeah, these vaccines, you can also look. So what if this is a live exercise? That moment we realized it, that given what Bill Gates, we get to call it off. More than ever, we can see how the MSM is making shit up, just completely. And the people on the street, are creating hashtags, film your hospitals, and seeing the disparity. Like, thank goodness for social media. It's so too bad that it's basically compromised and that big pharma is running the show. It's too bad.
Yeah, I had Dr. Kendra Becker on not too long ago to talk about COVID-19, and we were talking about how, like, the pill epidemic killed so many people and nobody gave a shit about it. Nobody talked about it. No politician would talk about it. No mainstream media would talk about it. And that's because between those segments, those commercials, what do you see? Pharmaceutical commercials. So what does that mean? They're having influence on what they're reporting. And that's what people have to put in perspective, that there are there are corporations, there's elite that are influencing what they're saying. And this is, like you said, I mean, very similar to like the Epstein story, where it was so obvious, like it got so obvious that there was more to the story that even the most skeptical people are like, okay, there has to be more to the story. This is just too obvious. I think, hopefully a lot of people will look at the mainstream media and be like, okay, well, they're only reporting deaths and cases, but they're not saying how many cases are mild and are nothing. They're not telling you the average age of deaths. They're not telling you that, if they have pre-existing conditions. They're not telling you all the inconsistencies. The details, like and not just the details, but the details that would any positive detail. Like, they're only giving you the details if it will continue pushing fear and their narrative. So if it has anything that would be reassuring. So, like, my last guest, I was talking to Ed, and I was telling him how, like, right off the bat, when the first, like, whatever it was, like 50, 60 deaths in the US, when I found out that, like, the majority of them weren't just in one state, but were in one nursing home, and yet the media didn't once report this or say it. I'm like, why wouldn't that be relevant? Why wouldn't that? And then I'm like, okay, I get it. They're pushing fear. Like, they're
yeah. I'd like to say something about that specifically. If you're talking about Washington.
Yeah, Washington State Nursing Home. Yeah.
So I had called the Washington Health Department weeks ago, still in San Francisco. So it must have been February, when the travelers were just returning from Wuhan. And I have her on record saying that the infected were travelers from China, right? And then a few days later, we got introduced with this community transmission thing. And it's in the old age homes. It's a culling also of elderly people. And you're like, so how did that happen? And then it gives them an excuse. Also, now they're doing their tracing, right? So I knew well ahead of time that, I could be on the airplane and in a couple of weeks get a call and be like, Ms. Henein, were you sitting next to 5C? Well, 5C is infected with coronavirus. You're going to need to take your test. F you, I'm not taking your test. And looking at the natural remedies, I mean, the natural remedies are remedies I've been selling and taking for like almost a decade. So ironically, Google messed with my company and other social media tech messed with my company, but this is helping. And now the FDA is like issuing letters against silver, against MMS and other natural remedies. Like, even they've come down on vitamin C and taken, this is horrendous, to not empower people if they so choose and allow medical freedom for like things like vitamins. Like, just understanding that this depletes you of zinc. So, the people who do choose to take hydrochloroquine, if they choose to, if they even understand the mechanism, it could be helped with taking zinc. I mean, it's already, if you do research, it's so compromised online. You have to really be looking and digging to find truth. And so this is also coronavirus. It's a way to institute more control, more surveillance, to have China light, to further put the boot down on people who are influencers in the natural health space.
Yeah, I mean that's another example of the media only giving you stuff that's going to continue to scare you. They're not talking about the vitamin C, the zinc, the success they're having in some hospitals with this stuff. They're not. They're just talking about vaccines. They're talking about face masks. They're talking about all this other stuff. And
The ventilators.
yeah, the ventilators, which are killing people. There's been
Yes,
yeah.
there's ventilator associated pneumonia. It's like it's like a nail in the coffin. It's like over incubation, bye bye. And now you're being asked to sign a DNR form and not a do not resuscitate form. People are being told, I don't know, this is in the UK. If you have a comorbidity, if you have another illness going on, we invite you not to come to the hospital. If for whatever reason you develop coronavirus, we will not come. Think about the benefits that you are offering mankind. You're not going to be putting other people at risk. Meanwhile, just yesterday during the presser, a journalist asked the question, didn't have the balls to own the question. He said that it was like he was asking the question via a conspiracy theorist, a truther, and saying that people are saying that the numbers are inflated or misclassified. That's what conspiracy theorists, even though they have no evidence. Listen, mofo, if you were really a reporter, you'd find the evidence. It's right there on the CDC's page.
Yeah.
And you call yourself a fucking reporter, excuse my language.
That's okay.
You're a joke. You know, and then
is that you don't even have to find it on some alternative media website, which it's hard to find anyways because any alternative media website's being suppressed. But if you look it up, like it's on the CDC website, there are
Yes.
guidelines, and even if it's a assumption, you can classify it as that. So if for whatever reason, you know, regardless who you believe might be pushing this or for whatever agenda, it's obvious that like these numbers we can't take them to heart. We can't believe that they're accurate. I mean,
No.
I even shared today, like on Wikipedia, if you look up the Wikipedia for COVID-19 testing, you go down to accuracy and they talk about how like the problems they've had with the tests, how inaccurate they are, like all this stuff. I'm like, why isn't this information being shown to the people, saying that, okay, these are numbers, but by the way, these numbers are based on bad testing, assumptions that the virus had anything to do with the death, like all these other things. So it's like if the testing is flawed, if the cause of death can be assumed, then everything has to be questioned.
A sham. It's a sham. They're borrowing numbers. So I'll say a couple of things. They're borrowing numbers now from pneumonia. Let's put in perspective this hit. Really, probably a lot of people got it before it was official because people are testifying that, you know, they think that they had the coronavirus. So I lost my train of thought again.
Yeah,
I was saying, can you just remind me?
No, it's okay. We were talking about how if the data is incorrect.
Oh yes. So if the PCR test is incorrect and you run it enough times, you'll get a positive. And also it started with one test from the CDC, which was contaminated. And let's put into perspective that there are many tests. 2 weeks ago, there were 6. Last I checked, there were at least 13. So there's no golden standard of the test. And if you would have to go on the CDC or the FDA and go through each and every test, and see the limitations, and then what's the golden standard of passing those tests? And there's all the labs, and they fall under something called CLIA, and all of this falls under emergency, again, authorization, as I said earlier. And now they created an antibody test, right? So we were taught that if you have antibodies, it's a good thing. You've developed an immunity against something. Now it's been maligned that you have the disease. So there's that as well. So that will also, it's not diagnostic and it will prove to be false positives. Now they've also created a code. They've also told people that classify it under coronavirus. There was someone that shared their instructions. Then also in the UK, there are bills that are being passed to fast track. It's all about fast tracking, McMedicine, McDeath, to fast track so that you no longer need two medical officials to sign off on a death certificate, and so arguably not be able to really certify that the death was what it is. So that's how you're getting all of this ballooning of numbers. And then Dr. Birx is hinting of the surge, mentioning, so we're expecting, they're sending out tests and they're going for the low-hanging fruit, which is the sick people. And then I believe they will go to the next tier, which is now the trace contacting, because this is how, if they are successful, will get us in their digital certificate program. When you have Bill Gates saying he wants to vaccinate all of us, how many billions? 7? If they don't die first, which also brings up the medical shortages. Like if you go on the FDA, because everything is made in China, there's a lot of people who are not getting their meds that they've been used to getting. Another misclassification is that if you go in, aside from having, let's say, diabetes or if you have a heart condition and you take hydrochloroquine, yes, if it's just for 5 days, it's the reason why they don't like it is because it's generic, it's whatever. But for some people who has a heart condition, or there are side effects, and you could die because of that. What will you be classified under? Coronavirus death. So it's all sham. If that foundation is incorrect, everything else is a house of cards.
No, you're absolutely right. That's the thing that I think is so important, is that you have to start from the foundation. So it's like, according to these numbers, it's classifying this whole situation as, something that we need to take seriously. And then it caused the hysteria, which caused the shutdowns and all stuff. So I'm like, just go all the way back to the beginning. Everybody's just like, well, just stay at home and we'll just let this pass by and whatever. It's like, no, listen, you're just going along with it without actually asking the question on, like, why am I going along with this? What evidence or what facts or what proof do I have that what they're saying is true? I mean, it's the same people who lie to you about weapons of mass destruction, lie to you about what's going on in Syria, what's going on, that Gaddafi needs to die and the world will be a better place, and now Libya's a mess. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
all this stuff, constantly lying to you, and all of a sudden you just want to take their word for it. And it's like, no, man, like go to the beginning. It's like, if there's any type of questions that aren't clear in regards to the initial numbers, the data that's provoking all this, then we need to question everything. And you look at Neil Ferguson, the scientist from completely backtracked his number.
Wow. Yeah.
And his initial numbers were what caused the complete shutdown in the first place. That
kicked off the data model, kicked off the pandemonium or the fear domino effect. 2.2 million was it in the UK or in the States, and then 500,000 I think in the UK, and 2.2 million. And then Fauci himself in journals has stated that it's it's like the flu with a very little mortality. And as I was saying earlier, there's about 60,000 a year that die from the flu, and it's nasty. And also consider, why are so many military? What's the common denominator with them? They've been vaccinated. And you can also argue that the people in China were vaccinated. You can pose that. It's possible, given that they shed and infectious. And if you look at the kind of folklore of epidemics, like let's say if you look at Ebola, right? Patient zero, ground zero is always kind of fuzzy. Like they say in Ebola, this man walked into the hospital in the Bumba region, and the next thing you know. But when you look a little deeper, I have this book underneath my computer by Laurie Garrett, who whistleblower Jane Bergmeister says is a New World Order globalist. But I was reading the book Coming Plague, and I was reading it knowing that of her history, but just still trying to get the storyline, the arc line of Ebola. So it's always fuzzy. And then when you take a look, it started in the hospital, and it started with the mercenaries, the Belgian mercenaries who were vaccinated and had traveled. Arguably, they were vaccinated in hemorrhagic fever, and then that's buried. Yesterday, I was reading about all these elitist families and came across the name McCormick, and then realized that one of the main scientists, these virus hunters in Zaire, was a McCormick. Anyway, so it just follows the same kind of narrative, and it seemingly has built up and built up and built up. And then when I saw Contagion, I looked to see, okay, they must have consulted with the CDC and the WHO, right? So then I found a report that stated that they have a Hollywood wing, the CDC, and then learned that they've put in all these millions of dollars in helping shape the narrative to shows like ER and Grey's Anatomy. And of course, like now I'm saying it like, oh, everyone must know this. And paying people to actually watch soap operas. And so I've been watching the pressers as a journalist, but then yesterday I felt a little resentful because I was like, oh my God, this is like I'm tuning in to, the episode of As the World Churns with the COVID task force team, and feeling resentful that I'm playing in to even just have to cover the narrative because I want to cover it. Anyway, when you find out the corruption with the CDC, so they write this narrative, Contagion, they have terms like social distancing, and there's a kind of a rivalry between the CDC and the WHO. And it's like the elitists, the deep state, took the movie and they're like slapped it against the world and saw if they could make it run. And so let's just ponder for a second that this is a live exercise and not fully planned, because it seems like there are different strains of the virus and it's kind of petered out or not been as successful as they would have liked. Maybe he's disappointed, Mr. Gates.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, what do you think? So, obviously we talked about all the inconsistencies with the media and whatnot. Do you there isn't a patient zero, so we don't know where it all started. We don't know. I mean, there's a lot of debate about if it's man-made or if a lab in China. I know the Chinese have accused the U.S. of bringing it there, which, I mean, I'm one of those people that like nothing is out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
To me, like, I'll entertain all the theories because, they all have incentives and agendas and reasons to lie. So, you look at the Hong Kong protests. If you want to put an end to that, it wouldn't be a bad way to kind of put an end to that. Tell everybody that, hey, we're going to lock everybody up and make everybody have to quarantine themselves. You look at the U.S. I mean, if you're the deep state or the shadow government, whatever you want to call it, if you're the left, if you want to, obviously Russiagate didn't work with taking down Trump. So you want to maybe ruin the economy. So, and then make it easier to win the election. So there's a lot of people who benefit
so
from this.
much. Yeah. There's so much there. So to touch upon the origin story, I think it's a distraction and it's interesting. It's almost like purposeful to start all of a sudden calling it the Chinese virus, knowing that it will instigate and make people call him a xenophobe. But then he speaks to the Chinese president, on a regular basis. I think that's a distraction, this blame game. I think that the elitists would be on the same page as far as who brought it where. There's Fort Detrick, and there's the military games in Wuhan, and the military could have brought it in. And perhaps there's a lot of travel. Someone brought it in from China. Who knows? Why does it have to be only one place, right? It could be multiple and start kind of circulating it. It's certainly, I don't think, unless it was planted in the wet market. And I mean, I was watching all that fear porn that arguably now could be manufactured in Taiwan. and looking to see that, and that had a huge impact. So what did really happen there? I did interview 3 people under quarantine, but in Beijing. So halfway through the conversation is like, so did you know anyone? Do you know anyone who's died? No. Do you know anyone who has coronavirus, or anyone who knows someone who knows who has coronavirus? No. And yet they were also very compliant, and there was a sense of gratitude to the Chinese government, which I found fascinating. 2 of them were expats. So one of them, for instance, had a job in Beijing and made the decision to come back, and was told you have to go under quarantine. And she was under quarantine for 18 days. When I asked why 18, she couldn't answer, and seemingly she had not asked, so she was compliant. They removed her from her apartment, and they put her in a separate apartment. So I asked her, why weren't you allowed to go back to your place? And they were mindful enough to mention that the aircon system would be a way to transfer a virus, which they're absolutely right. So they had that mindset. But anyway, overall, they every morning had to take their temperature. And I had also predicted that they're going to weaponize the fever gun, take their temperature, but kind of like willingly do that. Which I found, and maybe some Americans are doing that because they want to, their consciousness, they want to flatten the curve, and they don't want to harm others.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The Chinese virus, calling it that is interesting, because I remember just reading recently about the Spanish flu and how it actually was only called the Spanish flu in like America. Like in Europe, some people call it this French flu, some people called it, so it's like they weren't sure where it started, and everybody was kind of calling it somebody else and blaming somebody else for it. And so you kind of see that happening here too. The other thing is, I'm getting the same type of feedback in regards to since this whole thing happened, and I've had so many people on the show that are willing to have honest discussions about what might be happening and willing to ask questions regardless if there's some type of public shaming or pushback publicly. I've had a lot of listeners contact me more than usual about like, hey, this is what's going on in the UK, or this is what's going on in Asia or whatever. And I just had Whitney Webb on too. She's in Chile, and it's and I've people from Portugal, and everybody's saying the same thing. Everybody's like, yeah, no, this is serious. This is serious. And I'm like, okay, well, do you know anybody who's died of it? No. Do you know anybody who has it? Well, a friend of a friend or somebody. Like, nobody's directly actually affected by this, but it's like everybody's just believing that people are affected by it. Like it's they're just taking the government's word for it. I mean, even with the hospitals, right? Everybody keeps repeating the hospitals are full. Hospitals are full. I start contacting people that I know that work at the hospitals. 2 local. I live right outside of Springfield, Massachusetts, and I have a couple buddies that work at the big local hospitals in Springfield. They're like, it's actually slower than usual, believe it or not. And
but you know why?
Why is that?
Sorry. Go finish, and I'll tell you why.
Well, yeah. So I'm asking the same question to everybody. Like, do you know anybody who's affected by this? Do you know anybody who's died? And it's like everybody just listening to the news that they should be quarantined and everybody's dying, but nobody knows anybody who's dying, and nobody knows anybody who's dying directly from the coronavirus. And in any cases where you might know somebody, there's other kind of underlying issues that could have easily been the reason they died. And there's Instagram pages and Facebook pages called like Film Your Hospital. Film Your Hospital. Yeah, and everybody's filming these hospitals, and there's nothing going on. Even Dr. Kendra Becker, who's just on, was prior to the show, she was telling me how recently she went to a local hospital in Connecticut, waited outside forever to see if it seemed busier than usual, and she's like, no, she's like, it does. She's like, nothing happened. And during the flu season, the bad flu season, hospitals can be a little busier than usual. So it's like, if you're having a bad flu season, like, it's not uncommon for hospitals to be busier around this time of year.
Absolutely. The ER is always full. It's not uncommon. If you're going to show me footage of people on the floor, that happens every day. I've been to the ER. I've had my fair share of visits. But the reason why I think that they're empty is I called St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank, and one, if you have the foresight to call the hospital instead of just show up at the ER, right, and wait for and be in that that petri dish. So you call, and they are telling you that if you have a high fever, to call your primary doctor, to not go to the hospital unless you're in palliative care or pregnant, about to, bust out a kid. So that's one of the big reasons they're being dissuaded. So when we found out that Mercy and Comfort, if I could just say a few things. One, we had just established, and I wrote a story in 2017 on how unsustainable a ship is and how it can kill you. We just established how unhealthy cruise ships are, always have been. Now you're going to tell me that we're resurrecting ships that are older than my mama, that have seen everything from Guam to Guinea, and are going to house, they have no windows. So that's why, the narrative, like, of it's prisoners or it's children in cages. But it's nonsensical that they were going to. So now I'm in LA. I have to go to the port and go, what are you talking about? I'm going to go on this ship. When was the aircon system cleaned up? It just does not make any sense. And we're still getting reports today from the Ruby Princess, like, of course you're going to get sick. It's a aircon system and freezing air conditioning that makes people sick anyway. So that's one part that also, so if people are being sent to a ship, that's another reason why the hospitals, but you can just call and see how long you're on hold. And then I finally got to the ER, and he was being very open with me. And then he's like, there's always that part. Who is this? And then he completely closed up. And so, of course, there's going to be a lot of people that are showing up scared that they have coronavirus. My girlfriend, who is a scientist and is my formulator and master herbalist, says that she had coronavirus, that she consciously exposed herself. She knew that she's 53, that she was more likely, and she treated it with herbs, but she said that she felt like she had altitude sickness. And where she was in Nevada, and she was exposed to G, and because I don't know if that deletes you now, because they have the Ike video. They said anyone who mentions
the Cinco G.
I like that. So she says she was exposed to it, but she's in a remote part of Wisconsin, but she says that it was like altitude. So I just spoke to someone who I trust. So I don't doubt that there's a virus that may pronounce itself differently based on your chronic illnesses, whether you have diabetes and then to find out, I think that the hydrochloroquine allows the zinc to be deposited and really works on exosomes. So there's a great video that I heard, because I always try to see things from a functional medicine point of view, but I'm not a scientist. So try my best to understand the mechanisms and the details of how something operates. But basically the hydrochloroquine allows for zinc to be deposited, and zinc is a big part of, helping, as long with lysine or silver or vitamin C, that can help bolster the immune system naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, this is it's just one of those things where it's so obvious there's more to the story. I mean, when you talked about the censorship, London Real was it was like one of the most viewed live stream shows ever. And gets pulled, and I give Brian Rose from London Real a lot of credit because he's fighting back. He's being very outspoken, and he's a perfect person to have that fight because he's not a conspiracy theorist. He's had plenty of different types of people on there, and he said it in the beginning of his last interview with Ike, where he's like, I don't agree with everything you say, but I will defend your right to say. And that's such a powerful statement, because you don't have to agree with people to have them, to defend the right to say stuff. I mean, if I want to watch a documentary on a topic that I'm like, oh, that's way too far-fetched, but what the hell, I'll entertain the subject. And next thing you know, there might be some truth to it. And I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. Or I might say, wow, that's complete bullshit. But either way, I should have the right to view it. And you see it over and over again. I had the filmmakers of what was it called? The Big Secret. It was about the history of medicine and how we basically got addicted to pharmaceutical drugs. That got pulled off Amazon. It was on Amazon Prime for free. Vaxxed, Del Bigtree's documentary.
I was on the Del Bigtree's show, and it was supposed to air, but then coronavirus. So I'm like crossing my fingers for Earth Day. We can do a tribute to the bees and the bee lady and just take a COVID-19 break. But yeah, sorry, I'm a big fan of Del's.
Yeah, he's awesome. He was on a few years ago with Tommy Polly, I think is the other. Yeah, and then
the producer.
Yes.
Polly?
Yeah, Polly. Yeah, and then I actually got to see him down at Hartford for the Red Pill Expo. He was down there also, and it was funny how many people just like he was out of all the speakers. People were just attracted to him because it's one of these topics that I think affects so many people. I mean, you look at like the swine flu. 60 Minutes did it's an old.
I see it. I saw it.
Yeah, and it's like people got neurological issues from this vaccine, and so it's like it's not conspiracy theory. I mean, look at Robert Kennedy. I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. is a pretty respected person, and he's so passionate about the topic that he's become the vaccine guy, and he knows how that makes him look, and yet he's willing to do it because he's so passionate, and he knows that he has truth on his side, and somebody needs to be able to have the balls, for I guess a lack of better term, to come out and push back and fight back. And so I give people like I give people like Robert Kennedy, because the thing is, when somebody like David Icke says these things, people can dismiss it like, oh,
because of his history speaking about reptilians, but he's also been around for a hella long time, and so he has like street cred in that sense, and he's clearly been prophesizing. But then there's people, like, I have no qualms in speaking. You want to talk about depopulation? Like I've been wanting to talk about depopulation and being told like, don't say that, and be like, I'm ready to be the first one on the dance floor. So then there's people like me who are willing to use their third chakra and speak, or that's one of my gifts, and then getting shut down. Like I was kidding the other day that I work for tweets. It's like, I'm not getting paid for this. I'm doing a better job than those prostitutes that show up that are not wearing masks in the pressers, and that also get highly shamed for asking remotely, a question that goes against the president, a hard-hitting question. So like censorship is so real, and it's amplifying. And when I was fighting for Roseanne Barr and Alex Jones, and like, you're a Roseanne fan? I'm a freedom of speech fan. Maybe it's because in 2016 I had already, started feeling the wrath of what I called techno-fascism, and in regards to CBD and having videos taken down because I'm speaking about a completely non-psychoactive hemp plant, and got shut down by processors and have been banned from PayPal and Kiva and GoFundMe. So not only reporting it, but like feeling it. And it's like, I don't want to get people voted off the island. We should have the right to express ourselves. And, then there's that fine line between what constitutes hate speech, and people don't have discernment. And now calling anything out, like you're dubbed an anti-Semite, you have Sacha Baron Cohen. This is such a brilliant line that he did not write, is that you have freedom of speech, you just don't have freedom of reach. It's so perfect. It's like you can say whatever you want. You're in an echo chamber, no one's going to hear you. But you got it. You got your constitutional right. That's how it is now. That you get punished, and it's seemingly more severe. So it's frustrating when you want to speak, and a lot of this of the as of late, the clips I've put on Twitter, I could tell that they're suppressed. Also by talking to others, like we've banded together, or we have like a group so that we can support each other and get the information out there. Anyway, back to Dell and Robert Kennedy Jr. That prior, it's on record that Trump knows the truth about vaccines. He arguably has a vaccine-injured child, and he has tweets on record expressing, and Robert Kennedy Jr. has said that this is an easy lift.
Well, speaking of that, before I forget, because this is a really important thing that I just learned from. So there's this guy, you know who Spiro is? He works for.
Yes, I know Spiro.
Yeah, for.
Well, he works for him as an activist post.
Yeah, activist post, and he does a bunch of good stuff. He has a video called "Henry Kissinger and Bill Gates calls for a call for a massive vaccination." And one thing that I learned from that video that I didn't know about was, because the thing is that a lot of these Trump was very, he during one of the debates he questioned vaccines, with that other guy, the doctor that was running with him, and they discussed it on one of the debates.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, they discussed it. I'll see if I can find the clip. I mean, good luck, because now anything that's interesting, it seems like you can't find.
Do you know the doctor?
Yeah, it was the guy who's running for president. The guy with the glasses, the black guy with the glasses.
Ben Carson?
Yeah, it was because they were doing it on purpose because they were trying to make him look like an idiot, Donald Trump, by bringing up the vaccine thing with Ben Carson. Like, what do you think? You're a doctor, and he has said things like this. And Trump said, he questioned it. All he said was like, hey, all I'm saying is there might be too many all at once. And
you get shamed and bullied.
Exactly. And then Ben Carson actually end up agreeing with him, I believe. He's like, yeah, I think he's right. I think in regards to like the amount of them, this and that. And so it seemed, from people who saw that and knew kind of Trump was willing to kind of ask those questions, we thought positive things. I know that there was rumors of Robert Kennedy Jr. talking to Trump about vaccines and all this stuff. Yeah. So that was all super interesting. And then when I learned about that Spiro video, was that I didn't know about this, but Bill Gates, and there's a clip of him.
I've seen it. I've posted it.
So for the listeners who don't know what I'm talking about, so Bill Gates ended up meeting with Trump after Robert Kennedy did, and he asked Bill Gates, him and Trump talked about vaccines, and he's like, no, he's like, that's crazy. He's like, without a doubt, that's not there's no truth to that, and he kind of just dismissed Robert Kennedy and whatnot. And then since then, it seems like he kind of took a 360 in regards to the vaccine thing, because it did seem like if we wanted to have at least the freedom to ask questions, the freedom of choice, then Trump was the guy, and now it does seem like a little bit like it's backtracked a little bit, because he's really not getting involved with like the vaccine debate. And before this coronavirus thing took everybody's attention, prior to that, I mean, the vaccine conversation was very popular, a very hot topic, and there was a lot of going back and forth with just basically the vaccine debate. So it is a little scary now how they can use this to kind of promote vaccines. They can use it to and they've done a great job of making people feel like, well, if you're not doing social distancing, if you're anti-vaccine, I've seen posts like, where's all the anti-vaccine people now? And it's like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even understand, like,
the logic.
Yeah, the logic in it, because without a doubt, like, this doesn't, first of all, even Johnson & Johnson's not a very moral company to begin with, if anybody knows their history. I mean, look at baby powder and whatnot. But, the fact that like you're just going to trust something. I mean, FDA approves drugs that soon after gets taken off the market because it's unsafe and the pharmaceutical companies are being sued.
They've killed, medical mafia has killed so many people with their prescription drugs, but that's never talked about. But those stats have definitely covered them, but then they malign. I mean, if you just even look at the whole beginnings of vaccines and the grandfather of vaccines, Edward Jenner, that he scraped, cow pus off dairy cows and then injected it into boys. And those boys didn't live past 21. And also the people that just regurgitate and say like polio saved lives. Well, okay, I'm gonna go and take down that rabbit hole. And actually, no, I think it was like the DDT that was masked as polio, and that the vaccines were causing neurological issues. And to take a closer look at all of these, like, and it's not to be against, I'm so against the word anti-vaxxer. I am pro medical freedom. The fact that I did like a parody, you're talking about the networks, like CBS is so compromised and has so much money, by the pharmaceuticals from ads. And they had this viral video, this TikTok video. Do you know which video I'm talking about? The woman who did her little dance, and she was pointing to all the things that vaccines do. So I took that little jig and I turned it upside down in a tribute to the Ministry of Truth that just reverses. It's like it's just all projection. They accuse others of what they're doing. They're the real quacks. This is quackery. Fast tracking a vaccine in 18 months and then applauding it. Like on one of the pressers, Mr. Green's like, I want to applaud you, Fauci, for your rapidity. Like, fast is good. No, it's not. 7 to 8 years is not a safe vaccine. You're going to tell me 18 months is? And what if it's an RNA vaccine and it's going to reprogram your DNA? You down with that? What if it has nanotechnology in it? And that's how Charles Lieber is implicated, because he's implicated somehow. I don't know how. And there is a Charles Lieber, Elon Musk connection as well. It's all like one soup of corruption together. Even all this, like on the coronavirus, all these relief, all these companies, they're all so many of them are Soros owned. Why are you partnering with Pizza Hut? Do you think that eating gluten and dairy from conventional like crap is going to help with the coronavirus? No.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like how many of these corporations are getting money from the stimulus package. I mean, they're just it's so. And then you talked about CBS. How about that clip of a New York hospital that was really a Italian hospital? Did you see that? Yeah, it was a Sky News clip, and then I've had people debate me and say that, oh, well, it's stock footage. I'm like, well, that's great, but I'm like, you have to at least say it's stock footage, because if not, you're basically putting the dots so close that people are going to connect them. You're basically, yeah, you're talking about busy, overwhelmed New York hospitals. Then you're showing a clip of a overwhelmed, busy hospital. Of course, people are going to assume it's New York. Why would they assume that it's just stock footage? You have to say that. Or so either one, you're purposely deceiving, or two, you suck so bad at your job that you don't look at where your sources are or if they're legit or not, and you're just putting out crappy information without looking at it. So either way, it's not good. And so yeah, CBS News, all of them. I mean, they're all so obviously in bed with big pharma. It's so obvious when you look at like we talked about initially, the pill epidemic, the fact that this was killing. I mean, this wasn't just killing old people with pre-existing conditions. This was killing majority of young people. And so you look at like the young people that were. I mean, I don't know anybody who's dying of the coronavirus, but I went to plenty of funerals. In a handful of years, I went to plenty of funerals every year of people that I grew up with or I knew that died from overdose.
Wow.
And like nobody was talking about it, nobody, and it was killing tons of young people. I mean, that was really something that really would have justified this type of reaction. But the fact that we're all, and then the worst part is the public shaming thing, like
Yeah.
the fact that, like, if you, God forbid, you try to get together with your friends, God forbid you want to go for a walk, go to the park, God forbid you want to do any of those things, it's like people are gonna, somebody on a forum or some type of page that I guess it's connected to the town I live in. My my wife was telling me how somebody was posting kids playing at a park, like, hey, look, these kids are playing at the park, somebody needs to say something, and it's like, what the fuck? I'm like, we live in a, a, just a dictatorship where just like now we can't even say anything because you don't want the government to think you're saying anything against whatever narrative they're pushing, because
It's
somebody
it's
will
serious.
yeah.
It's the snitch nation is no joke. It started on line, this shaming, and now it's going to get serious if you get the police involved. If, like, I posted, trying to be mindful to try to get a motorcycle, get some type of transportation, because typically I would be hitching. It's safe to hitch, and I'm in the mountains. To go down to the beach is like a 20 minute. Well, I was thinking I'm not going to be able to do that right now. Even the cabs, if you find the cab, if you get the cab, like one cab driver yesterday was like, I'm really, really sorry. Like, he wants to work, but it's not his day according to the regulations. So I posted for a motorcycle, and I was told you should stay home. And completely shamed. And I was like, I just deleted the post and I left the group, and then found another group. And this is where people they left the matrix, that they're conscious, and yet they're letting this go. And so, I respect, and I've told people, like, if I'm trying to get a cab, like, I've been quarantined for 4 weeks now. And, I've hugged people, because in this, like, here, this community, we hug each other, we kiss each other. So if you're also stripping that, that's also emblematic of what happens, let's say, with epidemics, like with Ebola. Think the African people, their burial rituals, there's a lot of touch involved. So you have this white man coming in and saying, you can't touch each other, you can't bury each other this way, and it strips you of your culture and your humanity. And we've already had enough problems where you get into the subway or a restaurant, and everyone's on their fucking phone, and they don't have the foresight, like, okay, I'm gonna, and I am addicted. I live in Twitterville, but I'm conscious of, like, okay, it's a little bit out of hand, and it needs to be put down. Especially if I'm sitting amongst other people to connect. So how is this going to impact? Like, I'm surprised Bezos hasn't. Where are the drones delivering Amazon stuff? I mean, they've had them for a while. Did you see that? I posted some footage of, in New York, voluntary drones telling people to social distance. I saw footage of a woman in England, in the UK, who got arrested for wanting to watch the sunset. And so she said, did you see that clip? She was on the bench, and she's like, I'm mentally exercising. I'm practicing my right to exercise mentally. And they engaged in like a 40-minute. So there's no mindfulness of, like, it's all ego, right? The dude is power tripping, trying to please, suck ass up for his boss or whoever, doing a good job. And she kept her composure, and you could tell if she was a lawyer, I wouldn't have been surprised. And she's like, I'm exercising my law. It's just the bill. There's no law that's come forth. And in reality, if anything, to the cop, that he's the one who's invading and putting her in danger, because he's encroaching on her on her space. Anyway, she ended up going to, getting arrested. And it's like, really? Like, this is the level of pettiness that we're going to devolve into, where where's the consciousness? That's why I said it's just the spiritual warfare. Like, you have self-awareness, you have critical thinking. Um, there's a good chance most of your viewers do as well. Kudos. And now, like, to piggyback on you were saying of the reporters not doing their job, the people who are doing their job and who are challenging the narrative, like the WHO, the HHS, the CDC, the NIH, they are working so closely out in the open 24/7, who has said to work with, debunking people who are spreading myths. So they're in the UK, they were inching to arrest people such as me or you who are dare to, and isn't this how we learn? Like, how is it that people still don't know that there's a Google whistleblower who dumped 950 pages? The mainstream hasn't really grasped or ran with that. And that's a big deal. And if you're using auto suggestions, that's like, look it up. I minored in psychology. It's a mind control tool. Very simple, very, very powerful.
Yeah, well, there's a great video I've suggested to my listeners quite a few times called Free is a Lie, and it's on YouTube. You can find it, and they talk about how, you think all these services are free, but there's a price you pay. You're paying for, one, the manipulation that's happening, obviously all your privacy, all your information, but he opens up, and it's been a while since I watched this video, but I think he talks about Facebook or Google, one of the two.
Is it Dr. Robert Epstein?
No, it's not him. It's actually he's a tech guy, and if you just look up "free is a lie," you can find it. I'll probably look it up at some time. But and he talks about how, like, they know when, like, you're going to be in a good mood, when you're going to be in a bad mood. They know when you're going to break up with somebody, when you're going to get together with somebody. They can look at all these algorithms. They can look at your locations, who you're hanging out with, who you're taking pictures with, all that information, and they can know all that stuff. You know what else they can do? They can also control that stuff, which Silicon Valley is hiring more psychologists and psychiatrists than anybody. Like, they don't. Yeah, and they don't want to. If you're looking for a gig, I'm kidding. But it's one of those things where, like, it's not just about understanding people, but it's like Edward Bernays. Like, Sigmund Freud wanted to understand the brain. Edward Bernays, who wrote Propaganda, wanted to understand how to manipulate the brain and control the brain, and that he understood that the majority of people don't really understand what is influencing their decision making, what is influencing their feelings, there's
it's like epigenetics too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not taking into consideration just the environment and even the people that you are in close proximity to. I mean, I'm speaking also from an empathic point of view of, like, it's invisible, but it's impacting you. So when we were in SF, and me personally, who's more of a nature person, like, in the mission where there's just, like, it's cement and there's this vibe, that impacts you. And like you said, there's all these variables.
Well, you hear about people who do the, walking on grass barefooted, like connecting with the earth.
Yeah, I do it.
Yeah. I mean, there is something. I mean, there's something about just being around nature and hearing animals, hearing the wind, listening to all these things that normally most people neglect. I mean, people who live in cities have a lower life expectancy, and it's from pollution, it's from brake dust, it's from a lot of different things, but it's also from a very high pace life, not enough time spent outdoors, not enough time doing the things you enjoy that release stress. Yes. And you're spending all your time just doing things that create stress and nothing that releases stress. That's why, I was just talking about this on the last podcast about how, in America, and this, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Christopher Ryan, and I'm always talking about his work because his philosophy and outlook on things is so interesting. But Dr. Christopher Ryan wrote the book Civilized to Death, and I've said this 1,000 times, so I'll try to make it fast for the listeners who are sick of hearing me talk about his work. But he talks about how, like, what is progression? What is, like, we keep thinking that, like, civilization has faster phones and faster cars and more tech and more things, and we think like, oh, we should be happier, but instead we're less happy, and there's more depression, there's more substance abuse, there's more. So we need to rethink what is progress. And you look at he talks a lot about our primitive ancestors, hunter gatherers and tribal people, and how they're happy and they don't have all the shit that we have. And all the people who supposedly are the winners, he talks about this rigged game, because he's like, if the winners, the people who are winning in this game, in the society we've created of like financially getting ahead and making money. So it's like, you're the winners. And yet you're the ones who are the most unhappy. You're the ones who have the most substance abuse. You're the ones who are you look at like celebrities, you look at musicians, you look at like so many people who have substance abuse, you look at them and you assume like, oh shit, they're famous, they have money, they have material things, they must be happy. And it's like, no, but they're probably surrounded by people who are using and abusing them, who aren't real friends. They lack community. And so a lot of our unhappiness comes from the fact that we're looking for happiness and fulfillment in the wrong places, not community, not friends, not doing something like you said. You're working for tweets. I mean, this isn't my full-time job either. I'm doing this it's a passion project. No sponsorships. I have which gives me the freedom to talk about what I want and have the discussions as openly and as free as I want. But I'll continue doing it. I mean, one day I hope to make a living off doing something like this. But if not, I'm completely fulfilled and okay with just provoking thought and spreading these interesting conversations and feeling like, okay, I can put my head on the pillow at the end of the night and feel like I'm contributing something. And to many people, that's all they want. Success doesn't have to be being the best at something or being the most popular at something. Success can be just attempting something. That's why I say you can always learn from old people when they tell you, like, you meet old people who say, hey, I wish I pursued that longer. I wish I attempted to do this. You never meet somebody who says, I wish I gave up or, sooner, or I wish I didn't waste time pursuing my dreams. Like, that never happens. So I think those are really important.
So yeah, let's use this, someone, I was being interviewed yesterday in like a round table and said like this kind of like gave a little reprieve to the planet because there's less pollution. Like in India, they've caught like some rare animals on the streets. And I mean, the message that I was receiving, which is why I'm in the jungle, it is regardless of coronavirus, that we're just disconnected. I'm a canary. That's the irony, that after making Vanishing of the Bees that I got exposed to pesticides, and even though I reversed an autoimmune condition, I still have multiple chemical sensitivities. And I also I had a near-death experience, and when I woke up, one of the things I realized was, just like in the book Perfume, I had supernasal powers. So I smell things and sense things that are not, and these are superpowers. It's come time to own them, and the pronouncing message is like, we're just so disconnected. And I felt like that when I came last time to the jungle, because I was waking up with the monkeys and the birds, and I, like nocturnal, was going to bed at 9:30. That's not happening now, because I think a lot of us are sleeping less. But typically it's called jungle midnight. And in Beechwood in Los Angeles, I was living across the street from the 5G, and I felt it. So yes, we're disconnected, and people should be allowed to go to their parks depending on where they are. I'm thinking that the presser is going to start soon, right?
Yeah, it starts around this time. Yeah. So we'll definitely. I mean, you do get some interesting stuff from it if you analyze it. And I don't know if you watched or if you listened to the No Agenda podcast with Adam Curry and
No.
John. Oh, they're awesome. They really, all they do is well, not all they do, but one of the things they do really well is they analyze what's going on in the news, and they'll take little tidbits and like, okay, that's a tell. Did you see how
Yes.
they that and they do such a good job of taking.
What's the name? Tell me, please.
It's called the No Agenda show, and it's a podcast. You can find it on their I think it's noagenda.com HoneyColony.com. And
Thank
I've been
you.
sharing their stuff like crazy because they really do a amazing. They've been out of all the podcasts I've listened to and all the documentaries and interviews, they're definitely one of the ones who've done some of the best work analyzing what's going on and really being able to find like all the press conferences. They'll find these little things that are just like, holy shit, like he said that, like. And nobody picked up on that, like all these little things that I think
I
are
definitely would check it out. I watch Sergeant Report and X-22 Report and SGT Report, and I do that myself. So yeah,
yeah.
I'm going to go and go and watch the presser.
Yeah, but we'll have to reconnect soon, and kind of, I guess, as this develops, and more information comes out, we'll let's stay in touch, and then I guess we're both on a journey of trying to figure out exactly what the big plan is or what the agenda really is. But like you said in the beginning of this podcast, which I think is super important, and James Corbett, who's a guest on the show all the time, does the same thing about.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome, and he says the same thing about 9/11, how you can get so caught up with like, okay, how did the buildings come down, that you end up losing that what's really important is all the stuff that happened afterwards, and who benefited from it. And same thing with this coronavirus, like you said, like the origin of it. Yes, is it interesting? Is it important? Sure, but everything.
What do we do now? What
Yeah.
do we do now? And the thing is, as people catch up, okay, like what are we going to do now? What's the solution if this is going to be a global medical martial law and we're not allowed to assemble? Because like you were saying, like it's totally, I can't say the R word. It's just R. Do you know which word I'm saying? So to have like 999 is okay. 1,000? Oh, you can't have it. Meanwhile, these pressers are sitting in close. Well, they're not wearing masks. It's just doesn't make any sense. And there's so many things like, we could still talk about like the fever gun and the fact that Stanford changed the body temperature. Charles Lieber, the train conductor, because I got court documents on that. I'm super grateful to have shared Ricardo with your audience, and yeah, I'm down to open my mouth and talk truth or talk my findings and just inspire people and empower them and educate and just offer information to just make them exercise critical thinking skills, which is at all-time low.
Yeah, and I love just hearing people who are willing to have these discussions. I mean, I just shared this Montana physician who discussing how the death certificates are how they're being manipulated, and like just hearing these whistleblowers and seeing these people who are willing to ask these questions. I mean, we need people who, to me,
absolutely,
it's always been much easier to be honest about how I feel about something or to discuss something than it is just to kind of go with the herd. Like, to me, it'll just eat me up inside, and eventually I have to say something. I have to, and I think the majority of people who are kind of saying, even the for lack of better term, the shitheads who are screaming at people like, stay at home, you insensitive bastards, and all this stuff, like the people who are judging others, I truly feel bad for them, because it's like that quote, it's easier to trick somebody than convince them they've been tricked. And I think in their heart, they truly believe they just care about humanity, and that they're just doing what's right, and that we should all just stay home for the greater good. And if that was true, I'd get it. But I just don't think that's true. And I think that we're being manipulated. I think we're being used. And I think a lot of, bad people are gonna gain from this.
Yeah, I would like to believe that there are white hats. I do believe there's, a galactic federation. I do believe there's good forces, and a lot of things are coming to the surface. And, also not to have so much hate. Like, I had to kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, walk away from Democrats, because I'd have like a friend that was like, should massage me, and like she'd be hating on Trump and massaging me, and it's like, dude, like, you're an aware person. What are you like touching me with all this like hate energy? I don't want to be hating on anyone. This is ridiculous. In any case, he's a puppet like every other. There's people. He's fulfilling his role. Like, you really have that much vitriol towards someone? Well, that's like, these things of hate and fear, what they have, the impact on the immune system. Like, think about it. If these people are eating fear, they eat fear. You can also go out there and talk about hyperdimensional entities and how they consume energy. Like, it's true vampirism, like energetic, where someone leaves and they've sucked you of your energy. And as someone who has light, as a light worker, I've fallen prey. And these are also teachers to learn to protect yourself and shield yourself, and hopefully to operate out of the heart. Like, the heart has such a big resonance, and we've arguably, we're stuck in our heads for various reasons. And now we're like being ushered into this new level of AI living where we'll be even more disembodied. And now shit is coming to the surface because people are antsy in their home. And it's like, go dance, go shout into a pillow. Go look at yourself in the mirror and practice self-awareness and start questioning things. This is a good time to do it. We've been given a time out, if you're lucky enough, because look at all the people who've lost their jobs, people who are not preparing. There was like a Sarah Hedge, like, are you in the Aesop's fable? Are you a grasshopper? Or are you an ant? Like, I'm an ant, like I'm a worker bee. So but there's advantages to both, but I don't think the ant is necessarily going to give you your roll of toilet paper given. So we have to be kind to each other. Like, we're punishing people for going to church. So it's going to get a lot uglier, and I don't know what I'm going to return to, or if I'm going to return, or I miss home, or my comforts, or my rituals of being in Los Angeles, lots of things, but I don't think that life, it's gone. It's like 9/11. It's a global 9/11, like Spiro says. I say it's a 9/11 to the 9/11. So yeah, I'd be happy to talk with you again, and to just have love for one another, for yourself, or even for that person who's snitching on the other person. Like you said, you had the foresight to be able to identify. He just doesn't know any better. And so there's a lot of like growing up to do. I was thinking of like Lucy in my head, like got a lot of explaining to do, got a lot of learning to do. So let's use this opportunity and hope that we're not heading towards, really like the revelations, and that is Bill Gates. Like, I was having a conversation and see the Antichrist, but he's not likable enough, because supposedly it's like more of like an Obama type, where it's like, Rico Suave and like a wolf in sheep's clothing, whereas Bill is just like straight out, arguably has, I don't know, as arguably a sociopath.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem with all this too is that all the anxiety, that the uncertainty of the future is causing, all the depression, all the stress from financial issues that people have who lost their jobs. Like, if this virus kills people with compromised immune systems, we are creating so much stress that everybody's going to have a compromised immune system, because
Absolutely.
stress causes tons of
stress kills.
Kills without a doubt. So I think that's another huge issue. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. Let my listeners know where they can get your documentary, if it's still available, and where do you connect? Where would be the best way to connect with you on social media? And
Thank you, Ricardo. Did you do it live?
Oh, well, can you before I stop recording, can you let my listeners know who
yes,
your website?
Absolutely, yes, please. Please, if someone is interested in reportage on coronavirus, go to Maryam Henein, MaryamHenein. I also have a modest YouTube channel. and HoneyColony.com to buzz on by to my magazine and marketplace, where we offer lots of things that can help bolster the immune system. Yeah, thank you,
And,
Ricardo.
and Vanishing of the
And
Bees.
Vanishing of the Bees. Oh yes, the film documentary by narrated by Ellen Page. You can find that on Hulu, iTunes, Amazon Prime. It used to be on Netflix streaming, but not anymore. Yeah, so it's all over the place, and the bees are still dying. So I tell people that my doc is still alive. It has had a long shelf life, and that's the bees really opened my eyes to our food supply and further down the rabbit hole to where I am today.
Oh yeah, I mean it's amazing how much the bees scenario affects so many other different things that I don't think people even understand. So yeah, very important topic. But thank you so much. So we'll probably both watch the presser and try to analyze our stuff, and then hopefully we'll reconnect in the near future, and hopefully things will be better, not worse.
I hope so. Thank you, Ricardo. Thank
Hey,
you. Blessings to you.
hey, you too.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye.